Hey, everybody, welcome to our next guest speaker session for MKT365 Esports Marketing. Really excited to have Chris Mann join us today. Chris is the Senior Vice President of rEvolution, which is a marketing agency and specializes in the esports space. So I'm really excited to have him talk to you a little bit today about what his role is, how he got involved in esports, and kind of just also want to just have him tell you a little bit, just give you a different perspective on the different career opportunities that exist in this space. So please welcome Chris.
That was a rousing ovation. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. It's hard. It's hard on digital. I totally get it
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
Friday morning when you all probably went out last night.
right.
I've been there. So Chris Mann, yes, I'm the SVP of RevXP, which is the gaming focused division of rEvolution. rEvolution is a global integrated sports marketing agency. We have offices here in the States, primarily. I work from home in New Jersey, but we have offices in Chicago and some other parts. We also have an office in the UK, and recently opened up an office in Singapore. So, like many sports marketing agencies out there, rEvolution has a lot of integrated services, things like events or experiential or hospitality or consulting. Hopefully, you know what those things are. We do creative, marketing, PR, run the gamut, right? Because once you work with a brand like Chipotle, you want to kind of get them to buy all your services. But one of the ways that rEvolution is really different, I think, than a lot of other agencies is we have an expertise around gaming, and that's where I come in. And so I run our division. We call it a segment of our business called RevXP. If you're a gamer, you know the whole meaning behind XP. And RevXP is really to help brands like tap into the passion point around gaming. So we aren't an esports marketing agency. We do. So the way I say it is, brands need a gaming strategy. Esports may or may not be part of that strategy, depending on their goals and objectives, right? Esports is encompassing many different games, just like sports encompasses many different games, right? When you say you have a sports strategy, that sports strategy could have football, it could have basketball, it could have many different sports, it could have MMA. Esports could mean many different things to many different people. And so we always lead with gaming because gaming is a cultural passion point, right? Like, any of you guys out there game, maybe throw a reaction for those of the five of you on camera. Like, I'm sure many of you game. I'm sure many of the guys on here game. I'm sure hopefully some of the females game, as it's a growing part. There you go. Thank you. So there are a lot, and there's a lot of games out there that you can play. So that's where we start with, because we know gaming is a passion point. Gamers are trendsetters. Nerd culture is cool, right? And so that's like a big part of like what we do is like tapping into the younger youth audience, digital native audience that drives culture, that are like young brand ambassadors. A little bit about myself. So I've sat in your shoes. It's been a long time since I sat in those shoes, but I did, right? I went to West Virginia. I did sports marketing. I graduated. I didn't have a job. I did experiential for a couple of years, went on the road, which was really cool experience. And then I eventually
I'm
found myself
sorry, I
at
fell asleep.
Nick fell asleep. Sorry. Go ahead, Nick. You can wake
I
up.
didn't want to. My ass.
Thank you. So I mean, I was at Genesco Sports for about 12 years, and during my time at Genesco, I ran Campbell's Chunky Soup's NFL partnership. Are any of you guys familiar with the Mama's Boy campaign? It's probably one of the most iconic campaigns in sports. And I ran that from 2007 until I left in 2017, 16, 17. So I
Is that with Donovan McNabb?
yeah, that everybody knows it from Donovan, and we had one year with Donovan, but we worked with, I mean, I have like so much autograph shit from NFL in my office that's where it's from. I didn't like go out and buy it. Like, so I worked in the NFL, like I did everything, across the gamut. And then around 2016, you started to hear this buzzword esports a lot, and like Twitch was really starting to take off. It wasn't new, but it started a lot. You start seeing a lot of like VC investment in gaming and Twitch and esports teams. And everyone's like esports, esports, esports. And so I got high. I kind of transitioned out of like this thing I was doing for a decade and working in the NFL. And I worked and I joined WME. Now they're called 160 over 90, one of the biggest agencies in the world. And I led T-Mobile's entry into gaming and esports. And it was a cool time, but it was also like a time where there was a lot of challenges, and there's still those challenges in the space, a lot of adjustments. But I was one of the first people that transitioned from traditional sports into the world of gaming and esports. And so we did a lot of really cool stuff when I was working on T-Mobile, and eventually I went over to the team side of esports to sell partnerships. Which was a fun experience. And I was at a team called Energy for a little bit, if those of you follow esports, and I was also at a team called Dignitas. Dignitas was a great run. Those guys own Dignitas is owned by Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, which owns your Philadelphia 76ers and my New Jersey Devils. They also own the Prudential Center, amongst other things. Some of their owner also just invested in the Washington Commanders. So big organization. I actually did Verizon's first deal in esports, where they built us like a 5,000 square foot, like 5G facility in LA for our League of Legends team. But I quickly realized I didn't want to sell partnerships, and got approached by rEvolution in like late 2019, 2020. And we're like, hey, want to go back to the agency side? And I've been on the agency side now again for coming up on 5 years here, kind of building this out. Some of our clients you may be familiar with. How many of you guys eat Chipotle? There you go. So Chipotle is the client that we are most known for in gaming. We came up with their campaign around the fighting game community. If you play Street Fighter or Tekken, if you watch content creators like Tim the Tatman, Pokimane, all of that kind of gaming strategy is led through our team. We also work with brands like AWS. They have a big partnership with League of Legends on the esports global stage. American Eagle, Liquid IV. Some of you may need some Liquid IV on a Friday morning after going out all night. It's all good. Other brands, Voodoo Ranger, New Belgium beer, which is #1 craft beer in the world. And we have a host of other clients in gaming, but those are the ones that we're probably most known for, specifically Chipotle. Like Chipotle's really proud of the work that and how that brand shows up within the gaming ecosystem. And it's a little bit.
Okay. Well, appreciate the background. So Chris, one of the things we actually we were talking about earlier this week, so the timing of having you join us is really fitting, because we started to talk a little bit about sponsorships in esports. And so one of the topics came up in terms of not only sponsorship but activation. So how do you sort of bring these assets that companies like Chipotle or Amazon would acquire? How do you bring them to life? And then also, how do you sort of measure them to make sure you're getting the value out of it?
Great questions. Is the question okay? So, and there's a lot of misconception, and hopefully this will be really helpful for you guys. So, esports partnerships aren't unlike traditional sports team partnerships. However, when you sponsor, I like to say the word partner. I feel like sponsor is such a transactional word. So when you partner with like the Philadelphia 76ers, right, as a brand, there's many different ways to show up, right? Arena, social media, potentially in broadcast. So that also taps into like buying media. So there's a lot of different ways you show up, right? Like player appearances. In gaming, it's the same thing. However, where it differs specifically with like esports teams is that where the Sixers play in one game, esports teams sometimes have 5, 10, 20, 30 different games they play in. Right. And so if you partner with that team, let's just say a team like Cloud9, they're one of the most popular esports teams in North America, and they have many different games that they play in. Fortnite, they have many different careers. So the value of a brand coming in and partnering with Cloud9 would be that instead of getting access just to one game, as you do with sports, you get access to their entire portfolio of games, which makes you immediately have in like all these different communities. So one of the things that's really interesting about esports and in gaming, specifically gaming, is that every community is different. The people who play Fortnite are different than the people who play League of Legends, are different than people who play fighting games like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or Tekken. These are all different communities. And so how to reach them is different. You have to speak to them in a way that feels native to them. And so a really great way to speak to them and be relevant to them, and I'll use the word that I like always laugh about because everybody says authentic, but it's like you have to be authentic in everything you do. But like the way to speak and show up as like an insider to them, which is really important, is to go through teams or creators. So if I'm a brand like AT&T who has to deal with Cloud9, right? They're immediately like entrenched in this, like one of the biggest games in the world, and frankly, one of the most watched content pieces in the world, League of Legends. right? So they have a deal with Cloud9. Cloud9 has a LTA League of Legends team. They partner with them. They do content, appearances, everything else. But then they also have a content creator who's one of the most popular FGC creators who plays Smash Bros, this guy Mango. And so they could do stuff with him. And so now they're using and facilitating their team partnership to show up in a real way and talk to different communities through this team partnership, right? And of course, the team partnership could be come to life in like logo slaps on jerseys or on streams. It could come to life on meet and greets done virtually on platforms like Discord. Also in person, it could come together in events. There's many different ways to bring it together. And so that's how teams kind of, I think, bring to life a partnership. Now, when it comes to events, so for instance, Chipotle is a presenting partner of Evo, which is the world's largest fighting game tournament. Any of you guys familiar with Evo or play fighting games out there? So if you play fighting games or you grew up in that space, you know that Evo is kind of like the Super Bowl of fighting game events. 30,000 people flock to Las Vegas in the middle of the summer, the hottest time of year in August, and they hang out in a convention center for a 3-day weekend, and they compete, but really only 10,000 of the 30 are competing. The other 20,000 are there just to hang out with their friends, be part of a community. You're gonna hear me, like when it comes to gaming, we really live and die on like this community aspect of it. In fact, we were just reviewing some creative this morning that we used last year at Evo. And it's like for Chipotle, they're all about like real food for real athletes, real food, because you can pronounce the ingredients. And so for us, it's like real food for the real community, right? Because Evo is a community of real people. And FGC. So how do we show up on site, and how do we show? And it's interesting because I'm literally doing a thought leadership piece right now about like how brands can show up at like gaming events, but like just specifically in esports events such as Evo, like we have an on-site footprint, we've got in-stream integrations, we do content around it, and so there are many different ways to show up. Some of the really cool stuff that we've done with Evo is it's interesting because like that community is really fun. So our booth at Evo is like situated between like Riot Games and SNK and all these game publishers, and everybody wants to go to the game publisher booth to just play their games or the new content that they launched at this big marquee moment of Evo. So our whole insight and expertise is, hey, people are waiting in line, but what if we just had a place for them to sit and chill and charge their phones? That's our activation. It's very easy. And why is that our activation? Because our whole premise is to add value and to level up the community experience. They can go be in the rat race and wait in line and like stand all day and use their phones and do what they got to do. But when they come to our booth, they sit, they chill, they watch Evo content. We have areas for them to practice. We run tournaments throughout the day that are just like really chill for people who may have gone to Evo, paid a lot of money to get there, but like get knocked out early and don't win anything. Well, come to our booth and you can win stuff. So our whole thing is like show up in a way that like feels really organic and like adds value to the space. And so then we have some really cool in-stream activations. I mean, we drop like tens of thousands of free entree codes for people watching at home. Of course, who doesn't love free Chipotle? And we do some other stuff. We're always finding ways to try to innovate and do something different. That's a big thing for a lot of brands is you'll hear a lot of brand marketers say, we want to be unique. We want to do something new. We want to do something no one's ever done before. Like if you work in partnerships, you'll hear that a ton. And you'll get really good at spinning what that means, even if it isn't new or something unique. But so that's kind of like, events are different. Now, Evo's a 1-day event, right? Or a 3-day weekend event. Whereas like, there are other esports events, like for instance, the League of Legends, which is like regionalized, and like their league now here just got rebranded where it kind of encapsulates like North America, South America, called the LTA. In the past, it was just North America, and like they have a series, like they broadcast every week from like Santa Monica. Riot has a studio that holds a couple hundred people, and they do a block party. But then when League of Legends goes to like the Worlds, they call it. Like that's the event where like like 8 million people are tuning in. And I was there last year at O2 Arena in London where it was sold out, where Linkin Park played in the past at the Chase Center, like Little Nas X performed. And so that's like a big event with like a lot of pageantry that's like probably on par with like, an NBA Finals or All-Star Weekend or even a Super Bowl. Like it's a big event. It has a big event feel. There are big brands there. Like Verizon has like hospitality there. AWS is hosting like a bunch of tech coders because they love League of Legends. And so they fly them to London and like wine and dine them to show them all the cool shit they do behind the scenes to like make League of Legends esports work. So That's a lot, but hopefully paints a picture of how you can partner within the esports ecosystem.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, uh, maybe let's just maybe stay with the example of Chipotle. Why did they make a decision to go into sort of the fighting game space? Is it because of the segment or the demographic of users, or
Oh man,
what went into
great.
that decision?
Great question. So Chipotle is a brand that really prides itself on doing something new and different, right? And they really want to find like unique ways in. Another thing for them is they want to find white space, right? And so like a lot of you guys, how many of you guys play Call of Duty out there? A lot, right? Everybody, every dude who's probably 19, 20 on this call probably plays Call of Duty like nonstop. Um, but there, when the Call of Duty comes out, how many brands are associated with Call of Duty? Burger King, like Pepsi, like how many times can you give away double XP? There's like 10, 15 brands giving away double XP, right? In in-game skins. You guys know what I'm talking about. That's not for Chipotle. Like they don't want to be one of many brands. Also, they can't compete with those brands' marketing dollars because they're not McDonald's. They're Chipotle, right? So it's a little smaller of a brand.
Mhm.
So they come to us and we build their strategy, we negotiate their deals. And essentially what happens is their whole thing is like, we want to find white space. We want to do something new. So we were one of the first brands that built a Fortnite map. How many brands have built Fortnite? Like Marriott Bonvoy is building a Fortnite map. Who gives a shit? Like nobody's playing that map. Like nobody's playing these like random brand maps that are going up in like Fortnite. So that's like not for a brand that wants to do something new. So using our industry expertise and like recognizing the ecosystem along with working with our research and insights team, we're like, hey, let's try to find some white space. And the way we did it was like, okay, white space is the fighting game community, right? There's this mega event called Evo. It's been around for 20 years. It's always popped off, but it recently got acquired by Sony PlayStation because all the games are for fighting games are usually played on Sony PlayStation. That's like the main platform instead of PC. And a bunch, and honestly, a bunch of my former coworkers at WME kind of got together with Sony and they acquired Evo. Evo was kind of like going through a hard time. It wasn't really growing. And so all these guys got together that I knew and trusted and worked with, and they're experts that came from Twitch, and they got together and they bought this with Sony. And so there was like this, okay, the tide is going to turn. This is a white space. It's outside of Red Bull, who does their own thing. Like there's not a lot of brands in the FGC, and a lot of brands that have tried haven't done it right. So we're going to come in and we're going to do it right. And oh, by the way, because it was kind of a distressed property at the time, we got the presenting partnership of Evo for like an extremely huge discount. And so that was year one. And the crowd were there with our clients, and like we're at the finals on Sunday, and literally a crowd of 10,000 people are like chanting Chipotle and cheering for them. And we're like, I've never in all my years working in like traditional sports gaming, like I've never seen a brand get cheered, like the actual love, because this community was like, oh, like this brand is here and they're like doing some cool stuff for us. They're showing up in ways that feel like they're part of our community. And like when we played the ad, they were like, yeah. So now last year they did the same thing. So you're like, well, why are they getting cheered? Why, so there's many reasons. Some of it's a little bit memey, some of it's like, but in the beginning it wasn't. But the reason why they're getting cheered is the first year we did a partnership, it wasn't just Evo. We partnered with Street Fighter 6. In 2023, Street Fighter 6 was the biggest fighting game that came out. There hadn't been a new Street Fighter game in like a decade. And so Chipotle was the exclusive launch partner of Street Fighter 6 in North America. We used a promo code. We did a buy get offer where you could essentially get in-game currency to unlock different things. We did a lot of really cool stuff. But the one thing we did that I think resonated was a really small touch was when you go in Chipotle and you do a promo code, our promo code was HDKN. Does anyone know what HDKN stands for when in the realm of Street Fighter? Hadouken. Anyone on this call not know what a Hadouken is? Everybody knows what a Hadouken is, right? So HDKN was like short for Hadouken because we only could have like I think 6 or 7 letters. So it was like HDKN and the button comp. It was like HDKN 236. So 236 is the combination on a fight stick to execute a Hadouken. Most top level hardcore players play in a fight stick instead of a controller. So if you've been playing Street Fighter for like 20 years and you see this as your promo code, you're like, holy shit, somebody at Chipotle gets me. They're part of my community. They understand me, right? And also, they're giving me cool stuff. They're giving me stuff that I want. And so when you think about when it came time to get to Evo 4 months later, we've been doing a bunch of activations with content creators. We've been doing our in-game stuff. We've been rewarding them. We've been giving like the if you know you know head nod. And so eventually we got to Evo. They saw our booth. They saw how we showed up. They saw what we did. And they're like, thank you, brand, for coming here and like doing something that like actually felt like a good activation instead of like doing something that nobody cares about. And that's why that partnerships is going into year 3, and is going into year 4. And we just negotiated a deal, Chipotle's biggest game publisher deal of all time, that'll get announced right before Evo. So, and keeps us in the fighting game community. So like when you do stuff that works, when you do stuff that like actually resonates, that the players in that community care about, it works. And like we did a study with YouGov where like Chipotle's purchase intent like went up 2x, like their brand consideration went up like 200 times. Like, so not only are we doing like really cool stuff that like feels good, but also like the business results are being driven. There's tangible business results.
Right. Yeah, no, that sounds, that's an interesting sort of way to kind of look at that because it's, you think back on sort of QSRs in traditional sports and really, their goal is just to get foot traffic, right? Immediate foot traffic through couponing and giveaways and things to get them at the
Yeah.
local. Sounds like Chipotle's sort of taking a little bit of a different approach, which ultimately can get them to what you're talking about, where it can have an impact on their business.
Yeah, our whole strategy is like honestly is like there's like a slide in our deck, and our strategy is like level up the player experience. And like a question I get from their CMO a lot is like, is this cool? Are people like on this call going to think what we're doing is cool? Right? Because that's the demographic, right? You guys are you're tastemakers, you're trendsetters. Your friends are going to you like, what shows are you watching? How do I set up a VPN? Like, what's the hottest styles and trends? And so like if the brand can be cool to people that are young and feel like they're in the know, then that'll transition and translate to like sales and brand consideration and awareness.
Yeah. All right. So I've got a couple questions here from students that had submitted it earlier before class. So let's just kind of run down some of these for you, Chris, sort of kind of rapid fire here. All right. So when you look at developing a partnership, what do you think will be sort of the future of the fan experience part of it?
So when we look to develop a partnership, we always start like, what are our brand's goals and objectives, right? Kind of like what I talked about with Chipotle. Like, what are your goals and objectives? Who are you trying to reach? Right. And then we take our industry expertise from my team, and then we work with our research and insights team, and we like use platforms like YouGov to like show tangible reasons like to back up why our expertise like, so that's how like, and then we build a strategy from there. So what are the future partnerships? I think specifically like in platforms like gaming, I think there's going to be a lot of like this physical to digital, or a lot of people are like saying this. People like to come up with stupid ass words like phygital, physical to digital, right? Like, so like this kind of like physical to digital thing is kind of happening. I think Nike's done a really cool job with it in Fortnite. And you guys play Fortnite, you've seen that you can now buy Nike sneakers in Fortnite. And oh, by the way, they're selling a lot of Nike sneakers in Fortnite. So, you could rock it, and so I think what you'll see is like this kind of especially in gaming, this like physical to digital world, because the same reason why people, like want the latest, Jordans, or like you want dress to stand out, or like want some exclusive skin in game for your avatar, that also applies in real life, right? And so I think there's like, how do we kind of bridge that physical to digital world? And a lot of brands, we're talking about that. So it's easier for a brand like Nike because it's like, it's sneakers, where it's like, how do you bridge the gap between like a burrito in game and a burrito like in real life, right? So it's a little different. So there's different things, but I think this physical to digital world, you're seeing it in platforms like Roblox. Like, do any of you guys play Roblox? I'm assuming no, because you're all too old to. Maybe I saw some eyes just get lifted up. It's okay. You don't have to be embarrassed if you play Roblox. It's okay. I see some smiles and smirks on the thing. It's all good. Listen, like Chipotle just debuted like an ad in like Roblox, right? And there's Roblox is like an interesting platform. It skews a little younger, but like for instance, like a brand like there's a tax brand right now in Roblox. And I'm always like, why is there a tax brand in Roblox? Like kids aren't
Right.
doing their taxes. But I think it's trying to maybe hit the parents and like take it like, hey, it resonates with the kids. So But Roblox is an interesting platform because like Walmart has like an experience in Roblox, and like you could buy items in their experience, like buy items within their experience, and then like go pick them up at the store and get them shipped to you, right? So like brands are trying to figure that out. Now I don't know if like I don't, like at the end of the day, it's like if you're gonna use a platform like Roblox just as like another digital marketplace, I don't know. It doesn't feel like kind of feels icky. Whereas like you could buy some kicks for like your avatar in Fortnite because like you care about how you look in game and out. It's a little bit different, but there's a lot of physical to digital. I think that's going to be coming.
Okay. Kind of leads into the next question that I got, and I think it's a pretty good one. So, and I know you kind of touched on some of it, so it kind of will relate to some of our previous topics here. But what is the process that you would go through to determine if a brand is a good fit for let's say, an esports property?
So I think we hit on a little earlier, like goals and objectives. So it's like again, we know that every community in gaming is different. So if we know like a certain brand's demographic overlaps immensely with like Call of Duty and the Call of Duty League, then maybe we would find ways in. It also depends on the budget. Like it's expensive to sponsor the Call of Duty League. So maybe we go the team route to Optic. And if any of you guys know who Optic is, like give a shake and like Scump, right? And like do some stuff with him because last year, really crazy stat, 44% of all esports viewership last year was through co-streaming of top creators. So that means instead of watching on the main broadcast, you're watching like the Manning cast for JP to get a sense of it, right? It's like
Yeah,
you're essentially
yeah.
watching like a top creator stream it with his community, which is like the Manning cast for Monday Night Football, right? That secondary broadcast. So think about that. So um, the other thing that's really nuanced for gaming though is like NFL is like unless you're sponsoring like MMA, like most sports are pretty brand friendly. But like Call of Duty's not brand friendly. There are real weapons, real blood. Like I don't know, any of you guys play CS:GO? Great game, gets a ton of viewership, but like no brands want to sponsor a game that says terrorists win. Then you're like, yay, terrorists win, and then the Chipotle logo comes across the screen. Like, no, that's not it. So I think it's also like, but a lot of brands in Europe do sponsor it, but here they don't. So I think it's understanding your brand's comfortability with like that game and that game's like content, right? Like Chipotle's cool with fighting games, but they're not cool right now. They've kind of taken a step back from like in the past we sponsored like PUBG Mobile, which was like a very realistic like shooting game. And so we haven't sponsored those games in a couple of years just for a variety of sensitivities. But it depends on the brain sensitivity. So you're not gonna if a brand's sensitive to violence and first person shooting games, like you're not gonna tell them go sponsor the Call of Duty League, no matter how much they overlap with that audience. So it's really having like education. A lot of my job is like educating brands and like trying to help, especially executive brand marketers, understand that like there are opportunities in if we start with like who you're trying to reach and like get your comfortability level. That help? That answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. Another good question I thought was interesting. So, Nick asked the question, do you think live streaming events can replace or even replicate a physical event?
I don't think so. And I think a lot of times, like I'll use Evo as an example because we talked about that one. Like Evo streams out globally, right? On Twitch and YouTube on Evo's channel, but like the experience of being there at the event, like it's twofold, right? Like some people can't afford to travel, or maybe they're busy, but they really want to tune in. And like, so when you watch an event on like a platform like Twitch or YouTube live, you're also watching it with thousands of other people, the good and the bad. There's some really shitty people on there, as well, right? And so it's like that's why there's moderators. So you're actually watching it as part of a community online, but you can't like I don't think you can replace like the experience of hanging out and watching with your friends. And a lot of brands have like a misconception that gamers don't like to travel, where in fact gamers like the gaming community loves to travel and they love to go to events because you could be playing World of Warcraft with like friends from around the globe and you could be literally like you could be talking to them all the time every day. And then like an event like BlizzCon, which will be back next year, like that's where you come together with your friends for like that weekend to celebrate like your love of that game and like your friendship. You may never see each other the whole year. So, yeah, I think people love coming together. I mean, gamers spend a lot of money to get to these events, and then there's like community artists that are there that like sell their tchotchkes and shit. Like it's wild. Like people are spending at Evos, people spend an additional outside of the travel and their food and their event tickets, people spend an additional $100 at Evo on random tchotchkes. So they've got money to spend, and they want to spend it and celebrate their fandom. You can't replicate that on a live stream event.
Right. One of the themes of some of the guest speakers that we've brought in this semester is the idea that one of the biggest challenges in the esports space is that users or gamers get aged out of certain games. And I guess that's the question becomes sort of how do you, if you're a company looking to sponsor or partner in this space, how do you sort of create that longevity? Whereas like, a sports team has a fan, they can be a lifelong fan and
Sure.
follows them through their life cycle, right?
So I think that that's changing because fandom is generational, right? I'm gonna use my example as New Jersey Devils.
Right.
When I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of New Jersey Devils fans, right? Because New Jersey Devils are like literally in the armpit of like New Jersey. I grew up in that area, so I could say that. But like
Right.
everyone I grew up with is like a Rangers fan, and like how the Devils fans feel about the Rangers, and we feel the same way about the Flyers. Sorry for Flyers fans, but Rangers, right? But it's like the Devils are here. It's like the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Flyers. Like half of New Jersey, where I live in Princeton, they like the Flyers. So like you got this Devils who came in 1980, and like they don't have generational fandom. So they have a smaller fan base. But over time, as kids who grew up in that area of New Jersey and the Devils were winning unlike those other teams, like they became fans of the Devils. And now you have generational fandom, right? The New York Yankees have been around for how many years now? Almost over 100 years. The New York Giants. I'm a Giants fan. Sorry. I know there's a lot of Eagles fans probably on this call. Enjoy it. So those teams have been around for a very long time. Like esports teams have not been around for that long. I think Dignitas was one of the oldest teams that got formed in like the early 2000s, maybe. And so, and esports teams have ebb and flows, and it also depends on the games. And so, you're looking at fandom getting passed down generation to generation. I think you're really early in the fandom of like esports teams. I think gaming fandom though is different because people have been playing games, since the 70s, maybe 80s when the original Nintendo came out. I actually have a quick trivia question for you guys. Please, let's do some engagement. Was the original NES color or black and white? Don't answer. I know you know, JP. Anyone else on this call? Does anyone think that the original Nintendo Entertainment System was a black and white console? Anybody? I love it. I'm gonna hire all you guys because I had to fire my entire team because they're all like mid-20-year-olds and they all thought the Nintendo was a black and white console. And I literally was like, you guys are done. We're done. Like, come on.
I'm gonna show my age. My first console gaming system was an Atari.
Mine wasn't a television, but then so yeah,
Oh,
so it's like, right? So it's like, yeah, it's like, but they were color. Right.
yeah.
So
Atari was color.
my whole team that works in gaming, like are like NES, like Super Mario 3, that's a black and white game. I'm like, yo guys are fired. Like you're done. I
Right,
can't
right.
talk to you right now. But anyway, gaming fandom's getting passed down. So I think it's generational, right? Obviously I'm older. I still play games. I have a 6-year-old. I play games with my son. We'll eventually level up the games that we play. We play like Mario Brothers Wonder now. And so I think whether it's esports or gaming, you're seeing older generations game because they grew up with it. And it's like not, depending on like your family, your life cycle, there have been times where I didn't play a lot of games, and there are times now where I play more games, right? And so it ebbs and flows with your life cycle, but I don't think you'll stop being a gamer.
Right.
So I like to say to brands, gaming is a way to reach your current and future consumer.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. All right, one of the questions, what advice would you give young professionals looking to break into this industry?
Sports, gaming, entertainment, anything, make meaningful connections and don't and continue to make those connections. I would say I have a lot of these conversations because everyone's like, how do you get a job? And it's like, well, what are you doing right now to make meaningful connections? Connections shouldn't be transactional. Sure, some of you may follow up with me, may connect on LinkedIn. That's awesome. Feel free to do it. But then like 2 years from now, don't expect me to remember who you are and like say, hey, could you connect me with this person? I'd love to try to get a job. I don't know you. I don't have a relationship with you. I don't we're not accountable to each other, right? And so making meaningful connections and like continue, what is a meaningful connection? Like I've had some person, I did a conversation with her years ago, maybe like 2016, her and her class, similar to this. And she literally checks in with me like once or twice a year. And she's just like, hey, just want to update you. I'm doing this now. Like, hope you're well. Hope your family's well. She never asked me for anything. Never asked me for connection, anything. Or I've had people just be like, can you help me like get introduced as people? And I'm like, no, like I don't know you. Like I don't trust. I don't like. I'm not going to put my reputation and relationship on the line because I don't. So make meaningful connections. Also, all you guys are in college. I don't know what year in college is this?
It's probably a mix between juniors and seniors in this class.
Especially juniors. This is the time you want to work for free. Intern, grow your network. You're outside of Philadelphia, right? Like reach out to the Eagles, reach out to the Phillies, the Flyers, the women's soccer team. Reach out to every team and see where you can get experience to work, to do something, because that's how you're going to grow your network. And that's how you're going to have tangible experience coming out of college to actually give yourself an opportunity to get a job. That's going to be different. I unfortunately went to West Virginia. There's a lot of cool things about going to West Virginia. There's a lot of challenges because there's no sports teams. The closest team is the Steelers, right? And so most people don't drive like that, to go up to, do that. So there wasn't a lot outside of like, like interning with the team, which is a very closed network around Morgantown. Like you're in a major metropolitan area, like use it, leverage it, like get involved. Like I know it sucks because it's going to take away from time and doing stuff that you want to do. But like if you want to get a job, that's how you do it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point and great advice too. Just in terms of relationships, we actually had an alum come to campus earlier this week, and she's the executive director of the Eagles Autism Foundation. And one of her messages too was build relationships when you don't need them, right?
Yeah.
So, everybody says, hey, you need to connect on LinkedIn and you need to meet people, but do it and I think you said it there a great way. Do it in a meaningful way that builds that relationship so that you start to have that rapport and trust. And then then you can leverage it. You don't leverage it before you have that relationship.
Yep. That's really important.
Okay, so we have a couple more minutes here. Anybody on the call have a question for Chris that, whether you, I know we kind of went over a lot of this. So a lot of the questions you guys submitted, we kind of naturally went over, which was great. Any other additional questions anybody has for Chris? Okay.
Okay.
Well, Chris, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us. I thought it was a really interesting perspective from the agency side and really gave some really great insight on the industry. So thank you very much. If students want to connect with you, is LinkedIn the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn's the best for
Okay.
sure. Feel free to reach out and if you have any questions, let me know. And I wish you guys the best of luck. And hopefully there's some gamers out there. And if you want to work in the industry, that gives you a little bit more insight into how we go about it. I'll say also like we don't hire like we've had interviews where people are like I'm platinum in League of Legends, and I'm like, do you understand like the business end of this? And they're like, well, no, what does that mean? And I'm like it's cool that you're platinum in League of Legends, but like we work like it's regardless if you're in the business of like gaming, esports, sports, like it's a business, right? It's business, right? The business of partnerships, the business of working with brands, building strategy. So it's not like you don't get a leg up because you're a college quarterback. And, I remember interviewing this college quarterback one time and he was just like, I want to work in sports. I know the NFL so well. Like college quarterback, like, I'm like, the business. And he's like, what does that mean? I'm like, no, like understand this is a business, right? Fandom is great. Passion is great, but like it is a business. Understand the business aspect of it.
Great way to end it. So again, thank you so much, Chris. Hopefully we'll talk soon and
Yeah, good.
thanks again.
Thanks guys. Have a great weekend.
Take care.